Confronted my mother-in-law about her appalling behavior during our son's final moments, revealing secrets and severing ties for our mental health. My son is dead. My little boy was 13 months old. A pillar of health. We cherished and looked after that boy with all we had. He was perfect on Tuesday and dying on Wednesday, and passed 7 days later. This is a whole other story unto itself. I got along well enough with my in-laws. My mother-in-law acts very immature and erratic. My wife told her mom used to an alcoholic. As I got more confident in my relationship with my wife, I told her, I think your mom might have alcoholic brain damage. Where I need help is this. My son needed emergency surgery as his brain, for unexplained reasons, was swelling. They had to remove part of his skull to allow for the expansion. My parents arrived within an hour of my call. My in-laws, whom this post is about, arrived much later even though they lived 30 minutes closer. My in-laws left as quickly as they arrived. My parents, however, stayed. They slept on waiting room coffee tables waiting to hear if our little boy would live. He made it through that first surgery, only to pass away the day after Mother's Day. My parents never left our side. Even though they had brought no clothes or supplies. My in-laws, on the other hand, did not reappear until it was time to say goodbye. My mother-in-law arrived in pajama shorts and a t-shirt that was too small to hit her girth. She began to ask the nurse if they ever treated any murders. As we took our time saying our goodbyes, she noisily played games on her iPad. The nurses arranged it so we could take him outside one last time even though he was on life support. You see, our son rarely cried, but whenever he did we simply took him outside. It cheered him up instantly. Being outdoors was his favorite place in the world. My wife went first, and held him one last time beneath the stars to say goodbye before I even had my turn. My mother-in-law asked us to hurry up. I was furious. I told her in the calmest voice I could muster leave. I meant for her to go home. She took it as permission to go inside. She stopped to clarify and I just said go. We brought my son back inside and they disconnected him from the machines that kept him alive. It was the hardest thing ever. I have been diagnosed with depression, severe anxiety and PTSD, and I am on antidepressants as a result. While we were waiting for him to pass on, he slowly was turning gray. My mother-in-law decided to clean up his hospital room. Problem with that is, as you know, she wasn't there, so the stuff she was throwing out was our paperwork from the social worker for grief support, etc. My mom stopped her from throwing it out, while I yelled at her to stop. All the while my father-in-law and sister-in-law sat there doing nothing with annoyed looks. When he was finally gone, my wife had to wait for the nurses to remove him from her arms, which is quite difficult as he was limp. My mother-in-law left immediately. When my wife got up, she asked crying, "Where is my mom? I need a hug." We did not see or speak to my in-laws for 2 days. We couldn't bear the hurt on top of the grief. I decided to clear the air and invited just my father-in-law for lunch. He arrived and made idle chit-chat and then got up to leave. I said, "What about lunch?" He said he needed to get home. We told him to wait, we needed to discuss some things. We described how hurt we were by my mother-in-law's behavior and he said she just didn't cope well. We said we would do our best to understand, but while we are sorting out our feelings, please ask her not to disturb us, and also if she is struggling that she has the option not to come to our son's visitation, we would understand. His response was, "Well, I guess I'll go home and kill myself." I have no clue what he said to my mother-in-law. Next thing we know, she phones and says, "I hear you are upset with me. Too fucking bad. I won't be at the visitation." Click. I was furious. I feel like I had just failed as a father. I was not going to fail as a husband. I immediately called her back and tore her a new one. Her response was, "I am not going to talk to you if you are going to use that language." I said, "Fuck you. You don't get to swear at my grieving wife and then claim some kind of moral high ground." She hung up on me. She immediately phoned my wife, who has said and done nothing at this point. She calls my wife a fucking bitch and hangs up. She begins to phone us every 2 seconds. She starts sending threatening texts that she will harm us. I call my father-in-law and told him to get things under control or I am calling the police. He begged me not to call the cops and took away her phone. The call stopped. We did not receive any support from my wife's family. They did not attend any events prior to his visitation. My father-in-law showed up late to my son's visitation in cargo shirt and an old golf shirt. A few days pass. I call my wife's aunt, who I have gotten to know a little as they are not a close family. I asked her for some perspective on my mother-in-law. She said they had a falling out over 20 years ago. The aunt had apparently cancelled a sleepover between my wife and her cousin. The cousin didn't want to go anymore. My mother-in-law told the aunt, "I hope you die." She then drove over to their home, knocked on the aunt's door and told her again face to face, "I hope you die." Apparently my wife's family disappeared for 3 years. The extended family had no idea where they were. Then we spoke to my wife's grandmother. She told us that my mother-in-law was diagnosed as bipolar years ago and has a history of violent behavior, including smashing the grandmother in a car door, repeatedly. The grandmother reiterates that they lost track of my wife and in-laws' whereabouts for 3 years. She feared that she would be violent towards my wife. My wife broke into tears saying that her mother had beaten her repeatedly in her drunken stupors. Now we have a clearer picture. My mother-in-law is mentally ill. My father-in-law knew this and hid it from his children. He knew how unstable his wife was and still brought her to the hospital. He completely mismanaged the situation by keeping everyone in the dark. My wife asked him very respectfully for a break in communication advice from her therapist, as she needed to heal and her family was hurting more than helping. It's been a few months and we finally heard from him again. I have copy and pasted his email below. I hope you are doing well, you are always in my thoughts. I'm writing this email because we really need your help with mom. She has been in the psych ward in the hospital twice, once for 6 days and then for over 2 weeks. The root of this problem was her reaction to your son's passing and how her reaction to this was treated. As her therapist says, everybody reacts to death differently and no two people grieve the same. I think it would be healthier if you two could get past this and start a healing process. At the present your mother is sliding back into her very depressed state, brought on by 2 things, the absence of your son and the absence of her eldest daughter. She said this to her therapist at her latest session. I'm sure mom misses you and thinks of you often but is nervous to reach out to you as you may not be ready for this. Mom's therapist is very concerned with your mom's mental state so, I think a phone call or set up a visit, just you, to see if you two can reconnect at some level, even if it's meeting at a coffee shop or at mom's therapist's office. Whatever you are both comfortable with. It may or may not work but I see this as a good viable option to what's going on now. So, mull this over and please let me know if us getting together is a possibility. We would really like it to be. Love, Dad. In her response my wife told him everything we had learned and pointed out how he had failed as a father, including this email which was void of fatherly concern for her well-being. She did offer to meet with mother-in-law's therapist, if it would help. His response was sorry to have disappointed you. Have a nice life. I was furious with this email. Not only did he not care about my wife's mental state, he did not try to re-establish communications first before making an ask. My wife has made the decision she is done with her parents. I have supported her decision as they have been toxic to both our recovery. Edit, removed some personal identifying details form fill email. Thanks for everyone's support. You've had me in tears but in a good way. Posted earlier today and was directed to this sub as well as just no mill. I cross-posted there if you are interested. I won't post again here but wanted to share about my sister. My sister is 4 years older than me. We were somewhat close as my parents just had the two of us. My sister always bossed me around but around 12 years old I realized she was not a kind person. My sister had screwed me over for years. I would help her constantly even to my own detriment, 'cause in my mind that's what families do. But she would never help me when I needed her. The few times she would agree to help she pulled out last minute. I could give you years of backstory but I will skip ahead to the final straw. 4 years ago my wife and I were buying our first home. My brother-in-law owned his own truck for his business. My sister offered it up to help us move as my brother-in-law was quite sickly, lung issues, and couldn't help with the actual lifting etc. This was to be their contribution. 2 days before moving day she calls me to say she doesn't want to put the wear and tear on the truck. I am stressed beyond belief and furious she is pulling this crap on me again. However, I keep my cool. She swears up and down that they cannot help that my brother-in-law is too and his nurse will be coming on moving day. She offers to pay for the moving truck if I can manage to book one. Great. I book the truck and call her back. She yells at me and tells me it needs to be booked under her card so she can write it off. Fine, whatever. She gives me the card number and then says, well, what? I reply, aren't you going to ask me to help you move? She says in my head I'm going WTF. She just spent months telling me they can't help including this conversation. I reply no. She loses it again and accuses me of just using her for her money. I've had enough at this point and I reply, you know what, if you think that little of me, the truck is already booked under my credit card. I'm good. I hung up and did not speak to her for 2 years. What brought me back into the fold was my bill was dying. I decided as shitty as she was everyone deserves family. I reached out and asked her if she needed anything. She asked me to visit her husband in the hospital. So I did. I visited him once a week until he was transferred further away and then I started phoning him. He died waiting for a lung transplant. My mom phoned me with the news. I said I'd be at my sister's place right away. My mom said you might not be welcome there. I said it didn't matter. Family is family. If she throws me out so be it. I have to try to be there for her and her kids. We never reconciled. We just pretended nothing's wrong. I rejoined family events in an effort to give them a sense of family. My son was born about 6 months later. It became harder to be there for her as I struggled to find my footing as a new dad with a stressful new job. But I made sure I was there for the hard days. My sister made little effort to be in my son's life. I was confused by it because she was so looking forward to his birth as a source of light in her life. She would make regular trips to my town and get drunk at the bar literally around the corner from my house and wouldn't pop in. I found out that she had started sleeping around. I'm no slut shamer and with Bill being sick for so long I'm sure she needed it. So I encouraged her at first. Then she slept with my mom's boss. It was starting to get out of hand. My nephew quit hockey as he was getting bullied in the locker room. We were all stunned as he loved hockey and was so personable. We later found out my sister had slept with one of the hockey dads. A married one. Next we found out she had a falling out with her best friend. She would only tell us that she was a bitch. We found out from the best friend they fought over my sister's new boyfriend. She didn't like him. He was a drug dealer. We have family in law enforcement so we had him looked up. Sure enough, he had been charged as recently as 2016. Off on a technicality, he also had a suspended license but was driving her car around with her kids in it. Things were very tense between the family and her. Then my son died. She made an effort when he was in the hospital, but she was gone. She blew off his celebration of life with no explanation or contact. I mustered my strength to attend her son's grade 8 graduation the following week. She refused to sit with us or even speak to us. I stopped talking to her after that. She texted me last month saying she was giving me space, her spin on ignoring. I told her she has let me down and she was dismissive. I told her off and blocked her number. I'm done with her for good this time. Turns out she was pregnant with the drug dealer's baby. She named it after her dead husband. I joke with my therapist my life has become some Jerry Springer shit. I texted my nephew when I thought it was safe to do so. She often takes his phone and reads it. Sometimes even texts back pretending to be him. I told him I loved him and that even though I was out of his mom's life I was not out of his. I would have his back if he ever needed it. And my door was always open. I have a feeling he will be needing. I heard from my mom that he told my sister to fuck off last week. Please don't think my nephew is disrespectful. He is an upstanding young man and attends Christian school. He has suffered so much and he has had enough of her. Update 1. Since my last post we have not heard from my wife's family. The Have a Nice Life email we received was our last contact. We spent Christmas and my wife's aunt. She asked if we wanted any info about them. We declined. We don't care. They are out of our lives. I cross-posted this update already to just know Mill. Even though we haven't heard from my Mill. We struggle daily with our loss. We struggle with zero support as my parents are away. Things felt so bad last year. Unemployment wouldn't cover me. During my bereavement leave I was fired. I was on contract, so no laws protecting me. I attempted to take my own life twice. I felt I had failed as a father and again as a man. I have finally seen a psychiatrist. I am now on antidepressants. I start with a new grief counselor this week and I have started to look for a new job, as I finally feel able to do so. My wife gave birth recently to a baby girl. I now have a daughter. A small piece of me was repaired. It feels bittersweet to be a dad again. We told very few people about the pregnancy. Maybe 10 people tops. Anything could go wrong during a pregnancy. We did not want to have to face the world if we potentially lost another child. I later came to realize the people we trusted enough to tell are the same people who came to the house to check on us. It's difficult to hide a pregnancy if people physically see your wife get larger. I mention all this because my sister chose to stop talking to us, so naturally she did not know about the pregnancy. The day daughter was born I told my nephew about it. I love him too much to make him feel alienated. I guess he told his mom and she was furious. No idea why, other than she is a narcissist who hates not being the center of attention. She called and berated my parents. Meanwhile her drug dealer boyfriend texted me telling me how shitty me and my parents are. I responded by texting, "My son is dead. My daughter was just born. Is this the man you want to be today?" He called me a retard. I told him to stay classy and blocked his number. I should mention that my sister and her drug dealer boyfriend also had a baby last year. They didn't tell me about it. I'm confused by the double standard. My sister spent the first week of my daughter's life phoning everyone we knew, who she was still in good standing with, demanding to know if they knew about the pregnancy. Of course, since we kept it secret, they all said they didn't know. This the last I've heard from her, though I doubt she'll stay quiet. My Sil, who I have yet to talk about, unblocked us from social media. I can only assume this is to try to glimpse pictures of our daughter. She also sent us a baby gift with no return address. I believe she did so we would be forced to open it before seeing who it is from. We have since donated her gift to charity as we want nothing to do with her. My wife wants zero reminders of her family around. I do not know if my Mill knows about my daughter. Her mom, wife's grandmother, asked people not to tell her about it as it might disturb her mental health. Update 2. I have been in the care of both a counselor and a psychiatrist. I seem to be on a good balance of meds for my depression and anxiety. I have been feeling a lot better lately. Thanks to my psychiatrist I was approved for disability. So have some income now. Because of this we decided that my wife should return to work and I would watch our daughter. I have been a stay-at-home dad since September. It's been going well. My daughter is now older than my son was when he died. We continue to have zero contact with my Mill and my wife's entire immediately family. My wife's aunt has been very supportive though. I've become a lot more insightful about the toxic nature of my wife's relationship, thanks to all of you. My wife went to grief counseling for our son, but she just started counseling today to deal with her family issues. She came home pretty happy, which is encouraging to see. Now we get into the real drama. My sister. My sister definitely has NPD. Which coming to terms with that has helped me immensely. I realize now my sister is incapable of loving me the way I deserve. She is still with the drug dealer and they are now engaged. My eldest nephew is almost 16. He got a full-time job and is on the basketball team. He uses these as excuses to never be home. Some recent issues have come to light. They have been physically and verbally abusing my 13-year-old niece. They have kicked her and slapped her. They have bound and gagged her with duct tape. They call her slut and cunt on a regular basis. Their reasoning for this is because she socializes primarily with boys. What they fail to understand is she socializes with boys because she is as immature as they are. She does not like to gossip with the girls her age. She prefers to play soccer and tag with the boys. My niece met a Lebanese boy through a church meetup. They hit it off and became friends. My sister found a picture of them together on social media and lost her shit. She went on a racist tirade and told my niece that Muslims would love to get a hold of a little blonde girl and take her back to Lebanon. I found this very confusing because A, they met at a church meetup, and B, we did not grow up in a racist household. My niece believes that the drug dealer is responsible for bringing racism into their household. I also find this confusing because he is biracial, German/Japanese. They forbid my niece from seeing this boy simply because he is brown. However, one day they bumped into him at the mall. The drug dealer grabbed the boy and held a knife to him and threatened him to stay away from my niece. The drug dealer was later arrested for this. He was released pending trial. He blamed my niece for the whole thing and they began attacking her at home. It ended with my sister saying, "I wish you would kill yourself." My niece then went to the kitchen, grabbed a knife and cut open her own wrist. My niece's friends at school reported it to Children's Aid. An investigation began. My sister told my niece that if she lost either of her sons over this, she would disown and stop loving my niece. Due to the drug dealer's charges and Children's Aid investigating, my sister, who had not been speaking to my parents, called them in a panic. On a long shot, my mom suggested she send my niece down south to stay with them. They are snowbirds. My sister was desperate and agreed. My niece is currently safe and happy with my parents. My parents and I are in agreement that they must keep her at all costs. She cannot go back to that abusive home. I will let you know if they get legal custody of her, as the battle is only just beginning. We get little nuggets of information from my niece. They pop out as she remembers things. Again, she is naive/immature. She says the drug dealer gets high, and when he is high he is paranoid. He gets a machete out and sits with it. He often forgets it and leaves it laying on the couch for the toddler to find. I had to ask my niece something I already knew the answer to in my heart, but I needed to hear it. She told me her and her older brother did not come to my son's celebration of life, because my sister kept it from them. My niece and nephew still love me, but their mom has kept them from me. I knew deep down that was what was happening, but it still hurts so much to know that I was being deprived of love and comfort from them in a time in my life I needed it most. Update 3, it's been a roller coaster since the last time I updated. First, I want to extend my gratitude to everyone who reached out with support and advice. You have been a lighthouse in the storm of our lives, and I can't thank you enough. The world seemed to be flipping through wild pages of a reality novel faster than we could keep up, leaving us breathless with each new development. My thoughts are still a bit jumbled, so please bear with me as I try to recount everything that's been unfolding. The legal discussions around my niece's custody were more intricate than we initially imagined. My sister, perhaps driven by her own demons or possibly influenced by the drug dealer, decided she wanted her daughter back. This unexpected move threw a wrench into what seemed like a manageable path forward for my niece. She hired a lawyer, someone who couldn't have been cheap, which is odd considering her financial state. My parents were also forced to hire legal assistance to ensure my niece's safety and well-being remained the priority. Court hearings have been tense, highlighting years of neglect and abuse under my sister's roof. My niece bravely testified about her experiences, shaking while recounting the horrors, but standing resolute. The judge seemed sympathetic, but as we all know, family courts often lean toward family reunification, which is terrifying. One surprising ally emerged from the chaos, my wife's grandmother. She reached out to us, extending an olive branch and expressing her sorrow over the pain my wife's side of the family has caused us. More surprisingly, she offered to testify on our behalf, emphasizing my sister's instability and the toxic environment my niece had been subjected to. Initially, my wife was hesitant, unsure of the sincerity of this offer, but after a heartfelt discussion with her grandmother, she felt there was genuine regret and a willingness to repair decades-long familial fractures. Tensions reached a boiling point about a couple of weeks ago. My sister's desperation to reclaim her daughter manifested in more unpredictable behavior. Late one night, I received several frantic texts from my nephew. He was staying at a friend's house when my sister showed up unannounced, screaming and demanding his return. Concerned for my nephew's safety, I called the authorities. By the time they arrived, she was gone, but this incident further solidified her instability to those who still doubted. Amid the storm swirling around us, a rare moment of clarity arrived in the form of reconciliation. My nephew, having finally found the courage, reached out to his paternal grandparents, his deceased father's side of the family. They welcomed him and my niece with open arms, offering them both emotional support and a stable environment. This family expressed interest in assisting my parents in acquiring legal custody of my niece, offering both emotional and financial resources to the battle they were facing. An attorney from their side even stepped in pro bono, a beacon of relief in an ever-strained situation. My own emotional landscape continues shifting, but the peaks are becoming more frequent than the valleys. Being a stay-at-home dad to my daughter has been both challenging and healing. Her laughter and innocent curiosity at the world inspire me daily to be a better version of myself. Having navigated severe depression and anxiety, I've learned more about myself in the past year than the years before combined. I'm reinvesting time into my mental well-being and am committed to being present, a commitment I will honor not just for my daughter, but for my niece and nephew as well. We await further developments in the custody case, living with cautious optimism. My sister's outbursts and unpredictable behavior are a constant reminder of the past, yet they drive our determination to secure a safer future for my niece. These experiences remind me that while we may be surrounded by challenges, the love and support of family, even those found unexpectedly, can create light in the darkest moments. Thank you for reading. The journey is far from over, but in sharing our story, I find comfort and strength. Please keep us in your thoughts as we navigate this intricate web we call family. Update 4. Just when we thought we'd seen the peak of chaos, life threw another curveball, one that left us feeling both perplexed and cautiously hopeful. Last month, while trying to keep the peace and support my niece and nephew through their tumultuous family situation, I received an unexpected message. It was from an old high school acquaintance, Jenna, who I hadn't spoken to in over a decade. Her message was brief but puzzling. Is everything okay with your sister? I've heard something alarming related to her. Jenna filled me in. Apparently, my sister's behavior had attracted attention in their neighborhood, for all the wrong reasons. Namely, the drug dealer boyfriend had allegedly started a small-time racket. Their lavish living, financed through dubious means, had drawn the suspicion of locals. Neighbors had even organized a watch committee to track their activities, trying to protect their kids and community. My sister's erratic actions, alongside his illicit dealings, had aroused their concern, primarily focusing on the children's safety and well-being. Feeling a rush of fear, I immediately informed my parents and coordinated with the attorney from my nephew's paternal side. Jenna's information was passed on, which could become crucial evidence in court, strengthening the case for my niece's custody. In a surprising twist, my wife's estranged grandmother became one of our staunch supporters. However, she wasn't content to merely testify. She took it upon herself to reach out to other family members in attempts to mend broken fences and forge new alliances. It worked better than we imagined, a ripple effect that slowly began to spread. A few family members reached out, expressing regret over past actions and now extending an offer to help however they could. One such family member was Aunt Karen, who, unknown to us, had been quietly assisting my wife's cousin, leading a shelter for at-risk children. She quickly volunteered her organization's aid. Having facilitated numerous cases of family reintegration and foster care, she offered invaluable guidance and insights, which only strengthened our resolve and strategy. With the custody hearing approaching, these revelations reshaped our outlook. My sister's spiral wasn't news, but the potential for the neighborhood to hold her accountable seemed promising, though heart-wrenching for her children, who deserved none of this. It was both a reminder of the impact of one's associations and an unexpected beacon of hope. Even more bizarre were the interactions with my nephew's paternal grandparents. They shared tales of his father and painted a vibrant picture of his life, weaving connections and offering mentorship. They were planning to set up a college fund for both him and my niece, a gesture I found deeply touching. Life around the house shifted dramatically with these developments. The once overwhelming pressure that permeated every aspect of life now seemed to provide structure and direction. I focused on mindfulness and embraced the chaos, rooting my day in routines with my daughter. My wife, flourishing under her grandmother's newfound guidance, began restructuring her relationship with her past. Her progress, layered with nuanced steps toward healing, uplifted us. We explored forgiveness, understanding it as a complex tapestry woven from strands of compassion, resilience, and potentially reconciliation. It doesn't always mean reconnection, but it has allowed us to shed burdens we didn't need to carry any longer. The impending court date hangs above us like an ominous cloud, but we stand united, wielding newfound strengths and alliances. We tread carefully, understanding the gravity of every decision before us. With each step, tangled family ties slowly begin to unravel into paths of clarity, leading us toward directions that, for the first time, feel promising. We remain immensely grateful for those who've supported us, from colleagues and counselors to family we never anticipated standing by our side. In this current strange landscape of uncertainty, there's one thing I'm sure of: compassion is contagious, and a community can offer incredible power when times are dark. Thank you, dear readers, for threading this journey with us. Your support and insights continue to enlighten our path. We'll stay steadfast and resilient, not just for us, but for everyone who has lent us a hand along the way. Keep us in your thoughts, for the next chapter awaits.